see you.
Hello, Natalie. Nice to see you again. How are you?
Yeah, really well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. Very well.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm pretty excited. So this is our first episode in the second series of This Week in Clinic. So this is a series that I've been doing, chatting to different psychologists like yourself, just to find out a little bit more about what goes on in your clinic when you see your clients, to understand about anything that's useful that you're working on with people at the moment, that people that are listening to this might also find helpful, to find out a bit about how you're looking after your own mental health, because we're all going through some pretty challenging times at the moment as well. But whether we are or not, it's important we also look after ourselves. And I guess the aim really for these series and these conversations is just so that people can get a sense of who we are as psychologists, that what goes on in the clinic room, to demystify therapy, if you like, because people might be considering coming to get help and not know what that's like. It's kind of a scary thing to come and meet a stranger and talk about difficult stuff that you might not have spoken to anybody else about ever. So really, it's just to kind of convey the message that we are human, that what we do behind the clinic door is multiple and varied, and to give people a bit of an idea about that, really. So that's the purpose of our chats. And Lowina, you and I worked together years ago now, but I remember our time working together very fondly. So I'm really pleased that you could come on and chat to me today. I'll ask you to introduce yourself in just a moment, but just to say that Lowina is a counselling psychologist. She works in the NHS as well as privately. And Lowina, you work with people over a whole range of mental health difficulties. So whether that's anxiety and depression that we might all experience, year on year, month on month, or whether it's longer standing difficulties, things that might go back to childhood or more complex than that. So in lots of different ways as well. But I'll let you introduce yourself now, because I'm sure that you can do a nice job of that, and then we'll get chatting about your week in clinic.
Okay, thank you for having me, Natalie. I am a psychologist, as Natalie has mentioned. I work for the NHS. I'm based in an integrated psychological therapies team, working with people who have severe and enduring mental health problems, which include things like depression, anxiety, trauma-based disorders, personality disorders. But I also have my own private practice and work a lot with people who have common mental health difficulties, which include like moderate levels of depression, anxiety, stress, relational problems. I've had a lot of people come through the clinic at the moment with communication problems attached to issues with assertiveness, passivity, aggression. Um, yeah, so working with a range of people from a range of backgrounds, with both severe and your everyday mental health difficulties.
Yeah, thanks,
Yes, so
Lowina.
just to say, I'm based in North London, private practice wise. I have a clinic in Holloway, North London, but also with the lockdown, I've been doing a lot of virtual work, which has actually proven to be quite effective. And I guess working virtually makes therapy somehow more accessible to people. So that's been quite useful of late.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, that actually, that we've all had to really adapt to working online, and it's probably not always our first choice, I suppose, or clients' first choice to come and see somebody online, but I have to say it's really opened up the options now. So actually people aren't restricted to finding somebody just in their local area, but can actually go further afield and find somebody that fits. And I often say to people, when we meet them for the first time, I say it's really important that you feel that we are the right fit for you, as well. It's sort of a two-way process, really, because you might be coming to see us for the next 3 months or more. It doesn't always have to be that long, but certainly you want to feel like that's somebody that that you want to see, that's well suited to help you with what you're experiencing. So I think there's a huge benefit to it, definitely, of working more online now and having that as an option. You know, even though it's not, you know, for everybody or might not be practical for everyone, but you know, it's good that we're all now a bit more skilled up and tooled up for that, I think.
You know what I found really useful is that people have been able to travel and maintain continuity in their treatment. So even though they may have to travel for work or whatever it is, you find that you can still book sessions overseas, which is really, really interesting and yeah, beneficial for the clients, I think.
Yeah, to get a bit of continuity rather than stopping and starting that, you know, might have felt that you had to do before. So, Lowina, I'd love to hear then how your week's been. So how has your week in clinic been, and what did you find yourself reflecting on or noticing from that last week?
I was thinking about this question in preparation for this session, and I was thinking about the government's announcement, the roadmap announcement to us, you know, coming out of lockdown and coming out of the pandemic, and the way in which that roadmap has sort of generated so much hope and energy for clients. I guess a lot of us have, you know, clients have been feeling, practitioners and clients, you know, feeling a little bit frustrated by you know, the restrictions that are imposed by the government and because of COVID. But there was something about planning that felt really useful to highlight because it has such a positive impact upon people's well-being. And it made me think about the way in which we plan our day, or the way in which we plan our week, or the way in which we even plan therapy goals. It actually generates hope. It generates hope, and it also generates a step-by-step guideline or guidance towards achieving set goals. So that's been my primary reflection, just thinking about the impact of that roadmap and how people have positively responded to it, you know, giving us a sense of hope and a sense that things will change, has felt really, really important. But aside from that, I was thinking about, you know, the season and it being March, and the change in weather of late. We've had some lovely sunny days. And again, that has just had a tremendous effect upon how people are feeling, including myself. You know, it just makes all of the difference. It absolutely makes all of the difference. So I guess it's just useful for people to think about the importance of spending time, you know, outdoors and engaging in like activities that allow you to sort of absorb the weather and the day. So those have been my primary reflections this week.
Yeah, I really like what you said there about the roadmap, because I was just thinking that, you know, one of the things that, one of my favorite times actually in working with someone is when we do that roadmap together, when we think about, you know, somebody might come feeling very overwhelmed, quite chaotic, not being able to understand, feeling a bit crazy. Often people will say that, oh my goodness, I think I feel crazy, or whatever it might be, because everything just feels so tangled and so messy. And actually, I think it's really helpful what we do at the beginning, you know, in those beginning stages of therapy, and that we continue to do throughout therapy, which is saying, well, let's make that roadmap. Let's try and understand what's connected to what, and, you know, and try to kind of disentangle some of that, and think about, you know, oh, am I? Sorry about that. Let me try and, I might put you on my, no, I won't do that. Is that any better? Has it stopped doing the funny thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be mine actually, but it looks like full bars, but we'll just carry on and see what happens.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I was just saying that, you know, disentangling things and being able to think about, even though it might feel like a long way off, what our roadmap is in terms of working on some of those areas that you know, that people want to make a difference, want to change, and that is an exercise in holding hope, isn't it? Because it might feel really hard to imagine that. It might feel really hard to hold and tolerate that time. And of course, you know, this whole thing about coming out of COVID, it's not short either. You know, there's some time ahead of us. So yeah, so I really like what you said, and I can totally relate to that. You know, it getting lighter in the mornings and in the evenings, and yeah, just noticing almost as the darkness lifts, a bit of our mood lifts along with that as well. And yeah, I can definitely notice that in myself as well. And I just wonder then, so from sort of talking about that and thinking about that maybe with the clients that you've been working with, have there been any useful take-home messages or any useful take-home reflections or skills? So perhaps if people are listening to this and thinking about that, has there been anything that you think has been particularly useful in working with your clients this last week?
I think it's a bit like what I've already said, I guess, just something about setting goals. Like with lockdown, people, every day can feel the same actually if you allow it to. A lot of people are working from home. You're doing physical activity from home. Everything is centered around the home, and I think there's just something really important about structuring your day. So having an agenda for the day, having an agenda for the week. A lot of clients have benefited from really just thinking about what it is they want to achieve in the course of a day, and actually mapping that out in incremental goals, and then ticking it off at the end of the day, because that also gives a sense of achievement, a sense of accomplishment, and I guess gives you some variation in your days. If you're able to plan your days ahead, then you can plan in different activities, maybe activities that you wouldn't necessarily do spontaneously.
Mm.
Um, so I think goal setting is a real primary um, skill, really, that I think is quite basic, but we don't really appreciate how important and how effective that can be in shifting how we feel day to day.
Yeah, I know what you mean, sort of getting some of that positive feedback from the things that we're doing. And I guess, I guess you could go either way with goal planning, couldn't you? You could either be an over planner and have too many goals and then constantly feel like you're failing and never getting anything done. Or, on the other end of the spectrum, I suppose you could just completely avoid it altogether and then feel like it's
Yeah.
really difficult to then generate what am I going to do? And the days can sort of pass by, and then that brings other issues as well. So I suppose, is there a sweet spot, you think, with setting goals, or how do we get it
Is
just
there a
right?
sweet
I
spot?
wonder.
I think it's about not over, like it's about setting manageable goals. Like,
Mm.
like you might just set very simplistic, a couple of simplistic goals for the day. Like, that you actually, like, every Tuesday you want to be able to go for a bike ride, or every Wednesday you're going to make a meal that's different from what you ordinarily would cook, or really simplistic goals that are kind of woven into your everyday life, your normal lifestyle. It doesn't have to be extravagant, and they don't have to be there doesn't have to be loads of them. Just giving it a little bit of thought,
Mm.
and scheduling ahead, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's nice to have something to look forward to, isn't it, as well? And also, to take a bit of the thinking out, on those days when you just feel like you can't, it's hard to generate the effort to think about it, that you've got a sense of, okay, well, I've got a couple of things that I've already thought about doing, that I've already planned ahead for, that are important to me. um, I mean, I suppose it's one of the nice ways that seeing somebody regularly in therapy works quite well, because that in itself is a goal, isn't it? So, often people will say, I know I was coming to see you in a week's time, so I would have that on my mind, and I made some space and time to think about that thing that we spoke about last session. And, so I guess in a way that's the nice thing about those kind of regular appointments as well, that it gives a bit of a sense of manageable chunks of time to plan in between, and then we can always tweak and review and do all those things to help people along that journey, really. And of course the goals may shift and change as time goes on as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how about you, Lowina? So, well, I'm firstly curious about whether you've been setting yourself some goals and what that's been looking like.
I have.
So which ones have you been setting yourself then?
Well, of late, because self-care, I'm all big on self-care. Self-care is of so much importance. We need to be taking care of ourselves, even as practitioners, or especially as practitioners, we need to be taking care of ourselves. So I have set my self goals around physical activity, around my diet. At the moment, I've recently joined a Zoom bootcamp class, which I do in my front room every Wednesday and Sunday. That's, yeah, really, really fun. You finish the class and you feel energized and good. And, you know, the gyms are closed. I'm one of those people that go to the gym regularly, and
Mm,
not being able to go to the gym has had an impact upon my well-being and an impact upon my mood. So being able to do that boot camp class every Wednesday and Sunday has been really, really helpful for me. I've also been blending all sorts
oh,
of concoctions, juices, and all sorts of bits and bobs. And my most recent blend has been what was it? It was turmeric, ginger, lemon, and oranges with a little bit of black pepper. Now that juice is really, really good for. Actually, it improves our serotonin. It actually lifts our mood. A
mm,
good cleanser as well. Good detoxifier. Maybe that's the right word. Um, but yeah, blending juices, and I might think in advance around what I want to blend and get the ingredients and blend that, and that gives me a feel good feeling.
yeah,
Yeah, other goals that I've set myself. One thing I've been doing with work is making sure I have regular breaks, and I think that's applicable
uh,
to anyone in any in any career pathway, in any sort of field of work. It's important to have regular breaks. So I've actually scheduled those in permanently in my electronic calendar, making sure that I have tea breaks and making sure that I have, adequate lunch break every single day. It's really easy when you're working from home to just carry on from
mm,
one task to the next. And I think it's useful that we do punctuate our day with time out, downtime, to do other things, and to just relax a little bit to recuperate before you go on to do your next task. And I think that's just relevant in life, you know, as well. We do at times need to punctuate our daily lives with breaks for rest and recuperation. So those have been my goals of late.
yeah.
Things
No,
that
that
keep
sounds really
me
good.
well and things that keep me healthy.
Yeah, and that, I guess as a practice, so the Bodark practice that I run, we're all about this sort of holistic approach to mental health, and that it is more about the mind, so more than just the mind. So it is about nutrition and what we eat and what we put into our bodies. Like you were saying with the blending, which is an amazing idea, and also what you're saying about exercise and having that planned in a way that feels manageable and realistic in terms of goals as well. But
Mm.
yeah, and also that whole thing, I totally agree that boundaries are so difficult when home is work and work is home, especially for people who might say, for example, are in a shared house and they're literally working, sleeping, doing everything in one room.
Mm.
Or rooms are becoming multi-purpose, so we sort of never escape. So I think, yeah, I think that's a really important point about being boundaried about those breaks. And I often say to people at night, just even though it's annoying and a bit of an inconvenience, pack it away. If you can see your work things from your bed, try, and even if it's just getting a box and putting it in there or something, to try and pack it away, and just having that bit of the breather, like you say, to get up and walk around and do something else, um, is really important. And I wonder, Lowina, do you think you could share one of your blending recipes? Could you share
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
forward you a little ingredients list. Yeah, absolutely. I'll forward a recipe of one of my
great.
blends. Yeah, no problem with
Oh,
that.
that
The
sounds
other thing that
great.
I've been doing, Natalie, which is so unlike me, is I've bought a pair of roller skates and I'm roller skating. So,
Wow. Where are you doing that, Lowina? In the park
just
or?
going into the
Where?
local park. But I guess another goal for me is to have more fun. Just to have more playtime and more fun. So these roller skates, yeah, it's my mission by the end of the year to be able to roller skate in a very balanced and fluid, rhythmic way. That's my goal for this year. One of my
Oh,
goals.
how are you doing now? How are you standing upright?
I'm still wobbly, but perseverance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I was thinking about that the other day because now my children are at the age where they're scooting and riding a bike, and I'm thinking, well, I'm either going to get super fit by jogging behind these kids, or I'm going to have to get something like roller skates. And it's a good idea, and
Absolutely.
it's nice, isn't it, when we can get back to sort of taking risks and not being so worried about falling over or looking silly or you know, and being having
Absolutely.
a bit more fun and playfulness. So, well, you're definitely now going to have to report back at the end of the year and let us know. Maybe send us a video of how gracefully you're roller skating around your local park.
Definitely will do. I will do. I'll take some videos and send it to you.
Oh, brilliant. All right, Luna. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you. And yeah, we will see you soon.
Thank you very much for having me, Natalie. Take care. Bye bye.
Pleasure. Bye bye.